There now that I have seen, and Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there are 3 different videos from police officers that have been released so far. One is Tyreek Hill driving at what appears to be a rather high rate of speed, and the motorcycle cop turning and chasing after him to pull him over. Then the interaction between the police officer and Tyreek Hill, which was released first. And then a third one where Tyreek Hill says, basically, this is what it's like to be a black man in America. And the police officer or officers say, we aren't white, they're Hispanic, it appears, that were involved in this incident. Now, it's gone mega viral. What is my take? First of all, there is no perfect actor here. As is the case in most videos of all of life, no one is perfect and the hero, and no one is imperfect and the villain, okay? So let's begin there with what we saw from this police behavior. Now, it's hard to tell exactly how fast Tyreek Hill is driving in the stadium zone with a bunch of cones up that suggest that it needs to be slower rates of speed. But if you watch the video, Tyreek Hill drives past the police officer and then also passes a bunch of other cars. The police officer has to go very fast to catch up with him. I don't think there's any doubt that Tyreek Hill was speeding and was going at a higher rate of speed than anybody else around him. In other words, I don't think there's an argument that the pull over of Tyreek Hill was in some way unjustified. I think he was speeding. I think certainly he was worthy of getting a speeding ticket. Now, as someone who has been pulled over for speeding a lot, I bet I'm in the 95th percentile for most times pulled over in a variety of different states for speeding. I tend to drive fast. I don't like when there is not a lot of traffic. I don't like the fact that you can't drive fast. I go fast. I've been pulled over, candidly, for speeding in like 8 states. I'm not even kidding about this. So I have been pulled over a lot by police officers in a variety of jurisdictions. I've even joked about this on my drives down to the beach in Florida. I think I've built some of the lower Alabama schools where they have all these speed traps. I mean, I'm talking about like you're going 45 and suddenly the speed drops to 25. I mean, just crazy speed traps. I'm not talking about going like 120 miles an hour. I'm talking about the speed changes by 30 miles an hour in the space of like a quarter mile, and it's almost impossible not to be speeding, all right? So I've been pulled over a lot. Reason why I give you that background. Every single time that I get pulled over, I don't have tinted windows. Officer walks up. I've got my hands on the wheel, trying not to draw substantial attention to myself. I roll down the window, and I give the officer my license and registration. Sometimes in the, 30 years that I've been driving, sometimes in the 30 years that I've been driving, I have either gotten cops who are jerks, or, this may stun some of you, sometimes I've been kind of a jerk. Because if you get pulled over in a speed trap, you're oftentimes not predisposed to be very favorable towards the police officer. That's the reality. Even if you might have been speeding, if you've ever been pulled over in a speed trap jurisdiction, you understand that you might not be in a great relationship or a great mood, and that might characterize your relationship with the officer. Sometimes police officers have been jerks to me. And what I tell my kids, and this is what I told them my whole life, comply with police officers. I've got a 16-year-old that I'm teaching how to drive right now. I have told him, if you ever get pulled over by a police officer, don't behave outrageously with them. Even if you don't think there is a constitutional justification for what they are telling you to do, comply with the police officers. I'm a lawyer. We've got the resources to get you lawyers. You can fight back against what you consider to be inappropriate police behavior, after you survive a police stop. So I'm giving you all that background for this reason. Tyreek Hill was pulled over based on the evidence, it seems quite clear to me, for speeding. He was then asked to roll down his window and keep his window rolled down. He has tinted windows. Some of you out there who haven't spent much time thinking about this, or you just reflexively decide which side you want to line up on a viral video, the reason why the window needs to be down is the police officer, given that the window is tinted, needs to be able to know that he's not in danger, that there's not some weapon being grabbed inside of the vehicle. If Tyreek Hill had rolled down his window and merely left his window down, nothing from that point forward is likely to have occurred. That is, he wouldn't have been pulled out of the car. There wouldn't have been any detention on the side of the road. There wouldn't have been the chaos that arose. So my advice to all of you out there is, even if you think you're in the right, even if you think you have done absolutely nothing wrong, when a police officer pulls you over, pull over, put your hands on the wheel, comply with all the instructions, and don't antagonize or exacerbate the tension of what might already be a tension-filled situation for an officer. So, if Tyreek Hill had merely kept his window down, there would not have been an issue. Now, did the officer behave in an aggressive fashion in response to Tyreek Hill's aggression? Yes. Will he watch that on film of himself, the body camera, and probably think, hey, could I have dialed back my behavior to some extent in this interaction and made things a little bit better? Yes. I think it is the correct decision to have made, that everybody can always dial back the significance of any interaction, right, in terms of the aggression. But if I had to assess, and then, by the way, Tyreek Hill's refusing to roll down his window. They open the door. They pull him out. They put him on the ground, and they put him in cuffs. Do I think he needed to be cuffed? No. Do I think he needed to be held on to the ground? Not personally, okay? But if I had to assess blame here, Tyreek Hill is speeding and refusing to comply with the instructions of an officer. If there are 10 points of blame to assign here, I probably go Tyreek Hill 7.5 or 8, police officer 2.5 or 2. That's the way that I would assess, or whatever the math is. 2.5 or 2, I think, is right? Police officer 20 or 25% responsible. Tyreek Hill 70, 75%, 80% responsible. However you want to assess. That's roughly my analysis of this situation. Okay. Now, why is this a huge story? Because of Tyreek Hill's behavior. If he had just gotten a speeding ticket, none of us would have ever known. And I would also point out that they're going to try to turn this into a racial situation. Tyreek Hill himself already did it on camera when he said, this is just what happens to a black man in America. It's just not true. Scottie Scheffler did far less driving to the PGA Championship to golf, and he was actually arrested and taken to the Louisville jail and charged with crimes. This is where the crazy town police has a real difficulty in explaining why Tyreek Hill basically got let go and went and played football and had no consequences. Scottie Scheffler actually got arrested, taken to the Louisville jail. He had to stretch to get ready for his golf round, and they charged him with multiple crimes until they finally dropped them. So, look, what this reflects is this can happen to anybody, which is why I come back to my standard operating procedure here, the thing that I tell my kids as well: comply with the request of a police officer. If your rights are being violated, then you can later, the great thing about America is, apply those rights through the legal system. What you can't do is decelerate a situation after you have accelerated it and made everybody more likely to be in danger. Now, the usual suspects have shown up, like Jamel Hill, and she said, hey, and I'm paraphrasing, it's important to know that the owner of the Miami Dolphins is one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters. And what does that even have to do with anything? If anybody wanted to get Tyreek Hill arrested, it would not be the Miami Dolphins, who were paying him $120 million, $30 million this year, over $1 million per game. It actually would have been the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because if he could have gotten Tyreek Hill arrested, the Jags probably would have won that game. So the only person who has an incentive to have anybody arrested that owns a football team on Sunday is the guy playing against Tyreek Hill, not the guy who's paying Tyreek Hill. Of anybody, that's who they want to take the field. So it's important to just apply basic logic. I understand that Trump has broken a lot of people's brain, but to see Tyreek Hill get pulled over for speeding and pulled out of his car for refusing to roll down his window and somehow think, oh, how can I make this about Donald Trump, is banana land, bonker land, insanity from the usual suspects on the left. So that is my take on the Tyreek Hill incident. He's not a hero. If I had to assess blame, I would say he's about 75% responsible for this, since if he wasn't speeding, none of this interaction would have ever happened. And if he had just rolled down his window and left it down, there would have been no further incident. He would have probably gotten a speeding ticket, and none of us would have ever had any idea that this had happened at all. But for those out there trying to turn this into a race-related issue, including Tyreek Hill and the usual suspects in the media, I would just point out Scotty Scheffler did way less and got treated way worse than Tyreek Hill, which really undercuts the idea that somehow the awful racist police officers were trying to mistreat Tyreek Hill. If you don't want to get pulled over, don't commit a moving violation in your car. Don't speed in an area like that. And you won't have to worry about it. I put up a poll question. First of all, Buffalo Bills dominated. Josh Allen, you heard me talking yesterday. I think Josh Allen is clearly the second best quarterback in the NFL. Now, he didn't have to do a lot in that game. The Bills dominated on the ground, really took control early. They didn't need Josh Allen to make that many plays with either his legs or his arm. Defense played very soundly, all of those things. But you heard me debating with Kelly in Vegas yesterday. I don't think there is a debate. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't even think there is anyone who would argue for another quarterback. Does he have a great coach in Andy Reid? Yes. Is he in a fantastic situation in Kansas City? All those things can be true. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. But I don't even think there's much of a debate now about who the second best quarterback in the NFL is. I think it's Josh Allen. Now, there are other good quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not disrespecting any of them, but I think it's Mahomes 1. I think it's Josh Allen 2. And I think there's a gap after that, because I think there's a lot of arguments for who should be 3, 4, or 5. You could go a lot of different directions there. But number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, Josh Allen. I don't think there's any doubt. Somewhere down around 10 or 12, probably, is Tua. Top 10-ish quarterback in the NFL. I would put him probably 10 to 12 if I were ranking all the quarterbacks in the NFL. And Tua has had major concussion issues in the past. And the biggest story to come out of the game in Miami is not the Bills winning to go to 2-0 or the Miami Dolphins falling to 1-1 and being, frankly, unable to beat the Bills. I think the Bills are 11-1 against the Dolphins, makes the Dolphins 1-11 against the Bills. The Bills have just dominated that division rivalry. But the Tua injury, for those of you who didn't see it, he's running on I think it was a third down play, might have been a fourth down play, down near the goal line, and he runs directly into Damar Hamlin, ironically enough. Not a dirty tackle by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, Tua led with his head directly into the right side of Damar Hamlin's chest, and then almost immediately collapsed, had his hand up, looked severely injured with a concussion. There's a pause in the game. He comes off the field. Mike McDaniel actually gives him a kiss on the head. There have been comments that he's the quarterback going forward and he needs to get well and all those things. Okay. It's tough to watch. And certainly I want Tua to get well. Tua, by the way, I mentioned my young Alabama fan son. Tua was fabulous with him. We met him when he was training with Trent Dilfer back in April of 2020. If you remember when he was recovering from his, I think it was a broken hip, right? Tua had a private workout because he wasn't ready for the combine. That private workout took place in Nashville, and my son, Trent Dilfer, is an OutKick fan. Trent Dilfer, great dude. I really, really like him. Trent Dilfer invited us to come watch the workouts. So I took my young son. Tua got to meet him. My son got to meet Tua. Tua was fabulous. Super nice guy. His family was all there. They were super fantastic. I got nothing but great things to say about Tua. I've wanted him to succeed ever since then, when I got the opportunity to actually meet him and my son got the opportunity to spend some time with him. But I think it's a really tough decision for Tua going forward. He's gotten a ton of guaranteed money, and his money is guaranteed in the event that he were decide that injuries made it impossible for him to continue playing. Now, there might be an insurance battle over how the $100 million plus would get paid out to him, but I don't think it's a challenging decision right now. If Tua were my son and Tua came to me and he said, "Dad, what do you think I should do?" I know that he loves football. And I know that he's been fabulously successful at it. And again, I think he's a top 10-ish caliber quarterback in the NFL with a really talented head coach and a really great collection of players around him. I think given the concussions that he's had, my concern for my son would be football would be a tiny pinprick of what I was concerned for him going forward. He's made more money than he can spend for the rest of his life. Why put your health in danger, your mental health in danger in the years ahead? So I asked the question. I was actually surprised how many of you agreed. Right now, about in a couple of hours of voting, about 15,000 of you have voted. And I said, in light of Tua's most recent concussion, if you were a family member and he asked your opinion, would you advise him to retire? Again, just shy of 15,000 of you have voted in the first couple of hours. 87% of you said yes, you would advise Tua to retire. I agree with the majority here. Again, I'm not sure, because he's a grown man, that I would interject myself into his decision-making process. But if I were asked as a family member, hey, what do you think? I would say, Tua, I think you should hang up the cleats. And I don't think it's particularly a difficult decision given what he's going through from a health perspective right now. And it's by far the biggest story coming out of Thursday Night Football, given the fact that the Bills absolutely dominated on the field and there wasn't actually that much drama in the game itself prior to the Tua injury.